All righty. Welcome, welcome. As we wait for folks to funnel in here, I'd love to kind of see where are folks from across the country? What institution, what city, where are we from? Throw it in the chat. I see some familiar faces, familiar names. Hello, hello, Aaron. Thanks for joining the webinar. Wholesale University. Welcome, Kim. All right, we'll just give it 1 or 2 more minutes and then kick it off. We have a good amount of people who are pretty timely today, so I appreciate it. Welcome, Joyce, British Columbia. All righty, let's go ahead and kick things off. Thank you everyone for joining today's webinar on harnessing AI for streamlined assessment and enhanced curriculum mapping. So as we go through today's session, if you have any questions, feel free to throw them in the Q&A and we'll cover them at the end. And feel free to have a discussion in the chat as well about any of the topics that we're covering. Today's webinar will be recorded and we'll share that with you afterwards, and it'll be on our website, as well as the results of some polls that we'll be doing later on during the webinar. So my name is Mohammed. I'm the Director of Artificial Intelligence here at Coursedog and the General Manager of the Assessment Cloud. So today we'll be talking about the assessment management product and kind of some of the theory around it. But we also have several others in the works as well, namely our course evaluations product that is coming out in Q4 of this year. So for today's agenda, we'll be doing a couple things. First, going over some introductions, which we just did, covering a little bit the current challenges and trends that we're seeing in the assessment space, then diving into the current state of assessment with Coursedog, how we view assessment and what we're doing in the space, followed by our vision for the future, which is a lot of really excited AI-powered initiatives that we've launched or that we are going to launch, followed by a Q&A section. So delving into the current trends and challenges with assessment, we're actually going to kick things off with a poll. So I'd love to do a quick poll here before we go any further to learn more about why your institution is looking to modernize your academic operations. Let's go ahead and launch the poll, and we'll leave it open for about 60 seconds. Perfect. All right. Looking at the results here, we see 18 folks are here because of the burden of that assessment creates in a lack of buy-in. We see 5 who are here around collecting and tracking assessment reports. We see some answers around analyzing data and taking action on it, and then a bit around finding and assessing assessment data. So we'll definitely be covering all of this and a bit more in today's webinar. And we'll also be sharing the results of these polls with you after the fact as well. So what is the current state of assessment management? Well, first, we were developing our assessment solution. We interviewed many institutions to understand the current state of their assessment and accreditation process. What we heard was very similar to what you saw in the word cloud and the answers from the polls. For many institutions, assessment feels like a fragmented process. Every program and department runs their own process. This makes it difficult to track each program's assessment progress and quality. There's a lot of manual data entry and transfer required because assessment data exists in all forms and lives in different places. Centralizing all of it to provide meaningful evidence and insights for assessment becomes very difficult. And finally, while assessment insights should result in action, tracking the progress of these changes and linking them to assessment plans may be difficult without centralization. So, tactically speaking, what are some of the challenges that we're seeing? One is a lack of standardization. At many institutions, each academic unit creates their own assessment plan before submitting it to a central office who helps oversee the entire process. While this may seem simple in theory, the decentralized nature of the work can create challenges. Two, plans are dispersed across locations. Departments often use different approaches to how they create, store, and share their assessment plans. This creates a few challenges. First, departments may use different approaches to how they create their assessment plans. This means different ways of formatting and organizing information. There's also a higher likelihood that different fields are used, leading just to inconsistent or missing information across different departments. Second, plans are often stored in different locations, from PDFs to online folders to emails. This makes it difficult for a central assessment office to really keep track of and assess assessment plans. Three, accountability challenges. When plans are scattered and few people can see where things are, there's little transparency. This makes it difficult to share plans and hold folks accountable for submitting their plans on time. And finally, it's helpful to reference previous assessment reports. You might need to reference a previous report when building the current year's plan, so you can build upon previous work and measure progress on the past year's recommendations. However, previous reports may be difficult to find when they're scattered across different locations or there's been staff turnover. Once assessment plans are created, staff go through the process of collecting assessment information and eventually putting together an assessment report. However, it can be challenging to find all of the required information. Data often lives across multiple systems that are usually hard to access. At a minimum, it requires staff to find the desired information and then manually transfer it or enter it into their assessment report. The time it takes to do all this takes a toll on staff and contributes to the negative view they may have of assessment. And then finally, similar to what we touched on in the previous slide, you may need to reference previous reports or changes to measures and demonstrate progress. This might include referencing changes to the curriculum, learning outcomes, or other programmatic changes. However, year-over-year tracking quickly becomes quite complex with all these changes living in different tools and different documents. So why is there urgency now around assessment? We just talked about some of the challenges around managing assessment, but of course they aren't new. Manual and fragmented processes have plagued many functions across higher ed for years. However, these pressures are causing administrators to rethink what new tools and processes can help them get to the root of these problems. It's not a surprise to many of you on the call that assessment is becoming more difficult. Both internal and external parties are asking for more information, and standards are always changing. There are also more and more calls to prove the value and outcomes of the education being delivered at our institutions. And of course, there's always the question of data. With seemingly more data, there are more asks to disaggregate data to see how we are serving students across different segments. So let's take a look at a new streamlined approach. To combat irregularities in the assessment cycle, institutions should leverage standardized forms to ensure assessment plans always provide the needed information. Clear guidelines embedded within the standardized forms help faculty understand exactly what information is expected and reduces ambiguity. This is particularly critical when information is needed for accreditation or helps you ensure oversight and governance. Next, transitioning from dispersed data to data stored in a single centralized platform. Collecting all assessment plans in one central location allows administrators to have a complete picture of where they stand on assessment. And additionally, administrators can easily reference previous assessment plans so that they don't need to go digging through inboxes, online folders, and more. We also talked about reducing the burden on faculty who are filling out assessment reports. Connecting your assessment platform with critical data systems such as your SIS, your LMS, your curriculum management tool helps to solve these challenges. Integrations with these critical systems saves faculty and administrators from having to track down information and manually enter it into assessment plans. For example, connecting your SIS or curriculum platform allows faculty to pull in information such as curriculum maps, course descriptions, learning outcomes directly into their assessment plan. Similarly, connecting to your LMS enables faculty to automatically pull in rubric data and student outcomes results, rather than having to do this manually. Collecting and storing assessment plans in one central location yields additional benefits as well for those managing the assessment cycle. Centralizing assessment plans fosters transparency by providing a clear view of submission status for all parties, thereby encouraging timely completion of assessment plans. Similarly, transparent reporting and dashboards that highlight outstanding submissions and progress enables administrators to quickly identify and address areas that may be lagging. With an assessment tool connected to your curriculum management system, you're always able to track and directly act on action items, including ones prompting curriculum review or changes. Greater visibility also allows programs that have developed strong assessment plans to share insights and best practices with others, promoting overall institutional improvements. For example, if you have one program in particular that's created a strong assessment plan, it can be helpful to share that assessment plan with other programs so they can use it to help improve. So what is the current state of assessment with Coursedog? How are we helping you improve on the problems we talked about and actually realize some of the gains that were in the previous slide? So let's go ahead and do another quick poll. How does your institution track progress on assessment reports? We'll keep this one open for another minute as well and see what data we get back. Alrighty, so looking at the results here, we see the number one way is a dashboard or tracking system, which is great. These are essential to really running an effective process. We see about a quarter of folks are monitoring emails or shared documents, and we've talked about the challenges of that, and we'll also talk about ways to help mitigate some of that as well. We're seeing about 10% where each academic unit uses a different method. This really makes it challenging to have a centralized process and centralized operation. And then about 20% of folks say that, hey, there's no formalized tracking system in place. And that's definitely where we see a lot of institutions as well. So moving on here, how are we seeing assessment being done at Coursedog? Well, we're using dashboards to track progress. On this slide, you'll see how we think about tracking assessment plans. As assessment leaders, it's important to ensure that all programs and units are staying up to date with their plans and action items. Are units gathering their data and compiling their reports in a timely manner? Well, with a dashboard, you can see all of that. Here, the centralization of tasks make this so much easier. The dashboard on the right shows how close each program is to completing their assessment plan. Administrators can see all of this in one screen and then use the information to follow up with units. Rather than sending out a generic mass email reminder, administrators can use this information to send out bespoke and personalized emails. Next is centralizing your curriculum maps. Within our assessment product, users are able to create, view, and manage curriculum maps. For each program, you'll be able to map your learning outcomes against the progression of required courses, allowing internal and external visibility into the alignment of these outcomes. Program chairs and deans can understand if the design of the program is effective for student learning, and students can have visibility into what they can expect to learn across their program. So let's talk about the benefits to your accreditation process. We haven't talked much about this today, but I know it's a whole topic that can have a whole entire session if we had time. That being said, assessment and accreditation are closely linked. There are a couple ways that moving to a centralized assessment process can actually benefit accreditation. First is in storing your data. When it comes time to complete the accreditation report, institutions have to hunt down vast amount of information that typically span across multiple years. Having all of your assessment information from reports to curriculum maps to documentation all in one place makes it a lot easier to quickly find this information and build your accreditation report. There's also the question of sharing data. Different accreditors have different approaches here, but some may ask for access to your assessment portal to see all of your reporting and documentation over the years. When it comes time to compile all the information in your portal, you don't have to go on a wild goose chase and find the information just to make sure you have everything there. You also want to be able to share information internally. Again, say a particular program does a really great job in their assessment report. It's very helpful to actually share this with other units in your school to help share that information and share best practices. So we'd love to also take a look at some of the future-facing features as well that we're seeing in the Coursedog assessment product. The first one that I'm really excited about is our learning outcomes authoring functionality. So we've heard over and over about the challenges of faculty writing learning outcomes. Faculty are experts in their domain, but not experts in writing learning outcomes. And folks in the assessment office are really good at writing learning outcomes, but not experts in the domain that's being written about. So our learning outcomes authoring tool makes it easy for faculty and program coordinators to author new learning outcomes. Our AI model is trained on industry best practices, as well as the particular requirements and guidelines of your institution. This allows us to provide assistance at the moment of authorship of a learning outcome. It also allows us to audit previous outcomes and flag opportunities for improvement. With this feature, authoring learning outcomes should become a breeze. Moving ahead, let's look at learning outcome mapping. Maintaining correctly mapped ILOs, PLOs, and CLOs is no easy task. This becomes especially true when you're editing or adding learning outcomes. This is true whether you're adding a new ILO and need to create the downstream mappings, or you're creating a new CLO and need to ensure the correct upstream mapping. So if you're creating an ILO, you want to map down to the PLOs, to the CLOs, et cetera. Or if you're creating a new CLO, you want to make sure that's mapping to the correct PLO above it. Our learning outcomes mapping tool makes it easy to correct map outcomes at the moment of authorship. So as soon as you're actually creating a learning outcome, you can connect it to the right associated learning outcome. And this is done automatically through this AI tool. The result is a highly accurate learning outcome mapping that allows us to automatically create an alignment map to visualize all this. So what is an alignment map? Alignment map is what you're seeing here that allows you to actually visualize my ILOs connecting to my PLOs, connecting to my CLOs. Our automatically generated alignment map are game changers for helping the institution at large understand how their part fits into the larger picture. It also makes it much easier to start to have discussions around modifications and improvements of learning outcomes. So by using the automatic LO connecting tool that we saw on the previous slide, you automatically get these alignment maps that are generated, helping you visualize if there are any gaps or any issues with your alignment map. Speaking of gaps, we also have a AI feature that helps you identify gaps in your curriculum map. So in addition to automatically generating the curriculum maps, we're able to flag issues in competency progression. So this is doable by hand when you're looking at a linear course progression, but when you take into account the various course paths the students can take, things get very complicated very quickly. So in our previous example, there are 3 possible prereq courses for Econ 51. Sorry, let's go back here. There are 3 possible prereqs for Econ 51, right? 2 of these possible prereqs correctly introduced CLO 1, but as you can see here, if you're taking Math 107 as one of the possible prereqs for Econ 51, Math 107 never introduced CLO 1, and this creates a curriculum map. Again, this stuff is very easy to visualize when you're looking at one course progression, but as you look at all of the various courses that one can take before arriving at a certain course, it gets very unwieldy very quickly. And so these are the kind of curriculum mapping gaps that our AI feature is able to flag and track. We also have our automatically generated action items functionality. So first, we have recommended action items. We know that one of the most important parts of assessment is actually implementing changes based on the findings. So our AI-based suggested action items will provide suggestions for what action items can be taken based on the findings in the assessment cycle. This tool can also help to ensure that nothing falls through the cracks by highlighting deficiencies that have no specific action items associated with them. So from our previous example, rather than having to manually investigate the missing CLO, this AI feature would automatically detect the issue and create a suggested action item. So using our AI-enabled curriculum map gap identification tool, you're able to see a missing CLO for the prereq before. This action items tool automatically helps you create the necessary action item to ensure that you're taking action on your findings and able to make progress and improve your course. While this is still in R&D, we've been pretty excited by the results so far. Lastly, we're ending with a research project that I'm personally most excited about, and that's using AI to help with the writing of the accreditation report itself. So this is still in the R&D phases. We have a couple institutions helping us test this out, but in short, the idea behind this potential upcoming product is to really help organize and streamline the process of writing the accreditation report itself. So on the left-hand side here, you can see the table of contents that you have generated for all the various parts of your accreditation report. In the middle, you have your editor where you can actually write the report itself. And on the right-hand side, you're seeing our AI-enabled suggestions, pulling data from the assessment management product, which itself is connected to our LMS and our SIS, helping you write your accreditation reports. And we have our AI copilot in here that's able to help make suggestions and make modifications accordingly to your report. Now, the AI is not writing the report. It is merely helping you and providing suggestions along the way, surfacing the right data, surfacing the right recommendations, helping ensure organization, et cetera. Because at the end of the day, you are the one writing the report. We just want to remove all of the tedium and all of the complexity around that. And so that brings us to the end of today's presentation. I know this was much quicker than the hour. We were able to get through a lot of this. I wanted to save a good amount of time for questions. So if anyone has any questions, please throw them in the Q&A. Happy to use the rest of our time to really delve into your questions and start to have a discussion. And in the meantime, one last question here, one last poll. Are you interested in learning more about how Coursedog can help you with your assessment practices? If yes, we're happy to have a further discussion and chat about our assessment product. Happy to give a demo, happy to show the accreditation writing product, et cetera. But thank you all for your time. Happy to take questions and have a discussion from here. Alrighty, I see some questions coming in here from Gianna. What universities are currently using Coursedog's assessment product? I was going to ask the question live. Perfect. We have about a couple dozen schools who are currently using the product, a couple dozen more that are in implementation. So Gian, feel free to shoot me an email. We can learn about your institution and really provide you with a reference that is closest to your institution. But we have a whole variety of sizes. Pratt, ECPI are a couple examples of schools that are currently using the product itself. But again, send me an email. We're happy to kind of triangulate based on your school to find the best reference for you. We have a question from Kelsey here. Can you use the accreditation piece on its own? Just to clarify, this is not a product that we're selling right now. This is definitely still in the research phase. We are trying to answer a lot of these questions. It is most useful when you are using the Coursedog accreditation, sorry, the Coursedog assessment product, because we're pulling data from the assessment product, which is pulling data from your SIS and from your LMS. Now, based on what tool or what process you're having, there might be a way to actually use the accreditation piece on its own. The philosophy that we have at Coursedog is actually that each product should roughly be able to stand on its own and not be a mandatory bundle with a different tool. So we're trying to ensure that every product can stand on its own. So the assessment management product, our upcoming course evaluations product, and the accreditation piece on its own as well. But shoot me an email, Kelsey. Happy to delve deeper into your process, how you're managing assessment, and if that could work with our accreditation tool. A question earlier from Elizabeth. Will you share the recording so that I can share with my team? Absolutely. Our marketing team will be sending over the recording shortly after. All right. Well, thank you so much, everybody. We've dropped my email here in the chat. We will be sharing the recording after today. If you have any questions that you think about later, please feel free to email me. Happy to answer, happy to have a discussion, happy to really talk through all the stuff with you. Thank you so much. Have a great weekend, and we'll see you later. Bye-bye.